The cameras caught her smile, but Riley saw right through it. Just weeks after burying her mother, Riley Keough was handed legal documents that changed everything. No condolences, no gentle conversation, just a challenge. A challenge to her authority, to her role as heir, and ultimately to her place in the Presley legacy. Because behind all the grief and polite public statements, something much colder was unfolding. A calculated move by the very woman who once claimed to be her protector, Priscilla Presley. And behind it all was one thing, Graceland. Not just a home, not just a mansion, but a symbol, a legacy, and one of the most emotionally loaded estates in American music history. And when Riley realized what was happening, she didn't break, she didn't beg, she fought back. And if Elvis were here to witness it, if he saw what this battle nearly became, there's no doubt he'd be furious. Riley Keough didn't ask to become the new face of the Presley estate. She didn't spend her childhood chasing attention or trying to capitalize on the Presley name. She was raised on the quiet outskirts of fame, watching her mother, Lisa Marie, carry the unbearable weight of being Elvis's only child. And when Lisa died in early 2023, that weight fell straight on Riley's shoulders. She was barely 33, grieving, lost, trying to keep her composure as the world circled around her family like vultures. The memorials came quickly. Tributes poured in from every corner of the globe. Fans mourned Lisa as Elvis's daughter, as a singer, as a mother. But what no one expected was what came next. Just days after Lisa's funeral, Priscilla Presley went to court. She filed a legal petition questioning the validity of Lisa's will. The very will that named Riley as sole trustee of her estate. The very document that transferred control of Graceland and the Elvis Presley Enterprises Trust. Priscilla didn't just question Riley's authority. She questioned the signature, the timeline, even Lisa Marie's mental state when the changes were made. And suddenly, it wasn't just grief anymore. It was war. For Riley, it was more than just a legal filing. It felt like betrayal. This wasn't coming from a greedy outsider or a corporate investor. This was Priscilla, her grandmother, the matriarch of the Presley family, the woman who once held Riley as a baby and called her "my little girl." But now that same woman was standing in court, asking a judge to strip Riley of control. Publicly, neither woman said much, but behind the scenes, sources say the tension was unbearable. One insider told reporters, Riley was blindsided. She had no idea this was coming. And she didn't expect it from Priscilla. And for fans who followed the Presley family for decades, the question was immediate. Why? Why would Priscilla do this now? On paper, her legal filing raised concerns about the will's legitimacy. But many saw through the technical language. To them, it looked like a power move, a desperate attempt to regain control after being removed as trustee years earlier. Because back in 2016, Lisa Marie amended her will. She removed Priscilla and her longtime business manager as co-trustees and appointed Riley and her late brother, Benjamin. And that decision, it wasn't made in secret. It was filed. It was signed. It was valid. But now that Lisa was gone, Priscilla wanted back in. It wasn't just a legal squabble. It was a symbolic fight over Elvis himself. Graceland had always represented something bigger than bricks and columns. For Elvis fans, it was sacred ground, the house he built, the one constant in the chaos of his fame. And for Lisa Marie, it was home. She didn't just inherit it, she fought for it. She spent years trying to maintain the property, preserve Elvis's image, and keep it from becoming a commercial circus. And she trusted Riley to continue that mission. Riley, who never exploited the Presley name. Riley, who kept her personal life private. Riley, who carried herself with grace, even when headlines tried to drag her in. So when Priscilla marched into court to question the will, the internet erupted. Comments poured in from longtime Elvis fans. This isn't what Elvis would have wanted. Lisa made her wishes clear. Why is Priscilla fighting this? Riley is the only one keeping this family's dignity alive. For a woman whose public image once revolved around loyalty to Elvis, Priscilla suddenly found herself cast as the villain. And Riley? She became the quiet hero, Not by screaming, not by fighting fire with fire, but by standing still, refusing to be erased, refusing to hand over the keys to the house her mother once fought so hard to keep intact. What hurt the most, insiders say, wasn't the legal process, it was the timing. Lisa Marie hadn't even been gone a full month when the papers were filed. There had been no personal conversation, no chance for Riley to process her grief. She was, in the words of one close friend, forced to put her emotions aside and go into legal defense mode. She never wanted this fight. She just wanted peace. But if protecting her mother's wishes meant going to war, then she'd do it. Even if it meant facing off with her own grandmother. Even if it meant holding her ground against the last living link to Elvis's legacy. Somewhere between the headlines and the court filings, the heart of this story began to shift. Because this wasn't just about money. It wasn't even just about family. This was about Elvis. About what he stood for, what he built, and what he left behind. And as the legal battle grew louder, fans across generations began asking the question no one dared speak aloud. What would Elvis think if he saw his own family tearing itself apart over Graceland? From the outside, Graceland is a tourist attraction, a museum, a photo op. But for the Presley family, it was sacred. It was Elvis's final resting place, his sanctuary, the last place he felt peace before the world swallowed him whole. And for Lisa Marie, it was more than just an inheritance. It was a burden, promise, one that she carried through personal tragedies, financial struggles, and endless tabloid pressure. She didn't always get it right, but she never let go of Graceland. And when she rewrote her will in 2016, she made her intentions clear. Riley would be the one to carry that burden next. Not a board of managers, not a public foundation, and not Priscilla. For years, the public had viewed Priscilla as a graceful steward of Elvis's memory. She helped preserve his image, helped promote the estate, and stood as a kind of symbolic gatekeeper to the Presley brand. But not everyone saw it that way. Over time, whispers began to surface, accusations that she was too involved in the commercial side of Elvis's legacy, that she profited from the brand, that she was building an empire from the ashes of a man who never wanted to be a commodity. And when Priscilla filed to challenge the will, those whispers turned into something louder. She's not doing this for Elvis, one longtime fan posted. She's doing this for control. And Riley? She said nothing publicly. She didn't clap back. She didn't cry on camera. She simply showed up, signed the court documents, hired the right lawyers, and stayed silent, even as her own grandmother questioned her right to lead. Behind the scenes, the family dynamic was crumbling. According to insiders, Riley and Priscilla were no longer speaking during the height of the legal dispute. Once warm public statements were replaced with silence. The Presley family stopped appearing together. No joint interviews, no united front, just tension. It was heartbreaking to watch, said a close family acquaintance. They had just lost Lisa, and instead of coming together, they were on opposite sides of a courtroom. The meetings they did have were reportedly brief, strained, and painfully formal. There were no shouting matches, no dramatic confrontations, but sometimes the coldest battles are the quietest. And through it all, Riley's demeanor never changed. No emotional interviews, no press conferences, just a quiet determination to honor her mother's wishes. She's tougher than people think, a friend noted. She didn't want this fight, but she's not backing down. And then there was the emotional core no one could ignore. Benjamin, Riley's younger brother, Lisa Marie's only son. He was supposed to share this burden, to co-manage the trust, to walk beside Riley through the aftermath of Lisa's passing. But he was gone too, and now Riley was left alone, to represent her mother, to protect Elvis's legacy, to fight off the very people who once promised to stand beside her. That grief, that silence, gave Riley's actions more weight than any speech ever could. She wasn't battling for money. She wasn't battling for fame. She was battling for her family's name. Then came the news the world had been waiting for. A settlement had been reached. No court battle, no trial, No public crossfire. Just a quiet agreement signed behind closed doors. Riley would retain full control of Graceland. She would become the sole trustee of the Promenade Trust. And Priscilla? She would walk away with an undisclosed sum, rumored to be in the millions, and a ceremonial title granting her the right to be buried at Graceland, near Elvis. To the public, it looked like peace. But to those watching closely, it was a victory. A victory for Riley. A victory for Lisa Marie's wishes. And a victory, perhaps, for Elvis's memory. Because in the end, the person left guarding his legacy was the granddaughter who never once tried to use his name for herself. There were no statements from Riley that day. No triumphant quotes. No, "I told you so." Just a short, respectful comment through her lawyer, thanking the court for its time and discretion. It was the kind of quiet dignity that made fans rally to her side even more. "She handled this like a Presley," one fan commented. "Not the Presley the tabloids talk about. The Presley we hope Elvis was." Some critics still question Priscilla's motives. They say she did what any mother would do: look out for her daughter's estate, question the legal process, ensure everything was airtight. But others argue it wasn't about legal clarity. It was about power. Because by the time Lisa Marie passed away, she had already made her choice. She had already removed Priscilla. She had already entrusted her legacy to Riley. And going against that felt like betrayal. And yet, Riley never fed the fire. She could have spoken out. She could have dragged Priscilla through the press. She could have played the victim card. But she didn't. She remained silent, gracious, composed, even when she was being attacked. Even when strangers questioned her capability. Even when her own grandmother challenged her right to lead. That silence became her strength. And in the eyes of many, that silence honored Elvis more than any press statement ever could. Because Elvis wasn't about noise. He was about soul. He was a man who gave everything to the stage, but often felt misunderstood off of it. A man who loved deeply, trusted too easily, and was worn down by the very machine that made him famous. He wanted peace. He wanted family. And he wanted Graceland to be a place of love, not litigation. Lisa Marie tried to preserve that, even when she was drowning financially, even when the press hounded her, even when her personal life spiraled. She never sold Graceland. She never gave up Elvis's memory. She kept it going quietly, fiercely. And in her final act, she passed that duty to the one person she trusted most, her daughter. When Riley took over, she didn't rebrand the estate. She didn't slap her name across merchandise. She didn't change the velvet ropes or the gold records or the tours. She let Graceland be what it always was, a shrine to the man who started it all. But what she did change, silently without fanfare, was the tone. No more family fighting in the press. No more public breakdowns. No more chaos behind closed doors. Just stewardship, quiet leadership, and dignity. In interviews since the settlement, Riley has rarely spoken about the court case. She's chosen, instead, to focus on her work as an actress, a producer, a mother. But every so often, she'll post a black and white photo of Elvis, or a quiet tribute to Lisa Marie. No captions, just memory. And that says more than any court record ever could. Because it's not just about what she inherited. It's about how she carried it. Today, Graceland remains one of the most visited homes in America. And behind its gates, the legacy of Elvis Presley lives on. But it's no longer protected by contracts or corporate trustees or public figures with something to prove. It's protected by the one person who never asked for attention. The one person who never tried to be Elvis. The one person who, when pushed into a corner by her own family, didn't crumble. She fought, and she won. Because legacies aren't protected by lawyers. They're protected by love. And Riley Keough made sure Elvis's legacy didn't end in court filings and family betrayal. She made sure it endured with silence, strength, and a stare that said more than words ever could. If Elvis could see what she did, he wouldn't just be proud. He'd be speechless. For more of the latest news, check out this video.